welcome to the second of our series of videos where we're using map sewer to create a real-time catchment model, and we're doing this using a combination of our user interface and our map client. So this is the user interface, and in the last video we added these subcatchments, and we saw then that we had in the map client we could go in and look at all the calculated metrics that we had delivered under each one of those subcatchments, and that was all in video number 1. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to add in a pumping station. So we have a template which we can actually download from the UI, and I will cover that in a future video. But effectively this is the template. I'm just going to whiz very quickly through it. The main issues we need to look at are we need to create a name for each pumping station, an identification if you want one, it's not critical, and then really the longitude and latitude and longitude where those pumping stations are located. The rest of the parameters can be added at later time, and we can just reload them and it'll repopulate everything. So it's very simple to add features and properties back in at a later stage. But what we've got here is we've got a wet well capacity, we've got high levels, low levels expected performance of the wet well. If we're going to be monitoring GEOS and looking to save energy under GEOS, then we've got the GEOS company, then the associated tariff, and then we've got information on the pumps and the pump ratings and the pump capacities. So that's effectively the pumping station file that we're going to load, and we're going to load into map. So I'll move that out of the way, and if we come down to admin tools here, import a file, we've got again the selection of geometry types we're going to load. We're going to select pumping station, and we're going to import the pumping station file. So that's now loading, and that's loaded the pumping station characteristics. So we can see the nodes, etc. there. So what I'm just going to do, let me just clear that down. We'll select an area. We'll get the polygons again, and then we'll also get the pumping stations, and we'll just remove that polygon. So on the right hand side we have the selection bullet boxes to view the geometries that we want. So we can look at sewer nodes and pumping stations, or the subcatchments themselves. So whenever we create a pumping station, we automatically create a sewer node as well, so that's why they're showing overlaying the same location. So if we think about the way that we structure map, and that'll be covered in a subsequent video, effectively we have a subcatchment passing to a pumping station, and that pumping station passes to a node, and then a node goes to a node, goes to a node, and it might go to another pumping station and then back to another node. So effectively it's subcatchments, pumping stations, nodes is the hierarchy, and we can integrate detention tanks and CSOs and things like that into the geometry sets as well. So if I just go back into map the client, and we come out of that, we can come back out and we can see that we've now created these pumping stations, and so these are the characteristics of the pumping stations that we've just imported. So you can see that GEOS isn't applied. These are some specific characteristics. We brought in the operating mode of the pumping station that was in the CSV file we just looked at, and then under here we have the actual underlying characteristics of the pumping station. And in a minute what we'll need to do is to configure each of these subcatchments to accept the data from the we're going to configure the pumping stations to accept the data from the subcatchments. So to do that, we come down to specific geometry modifications, we select on sewer configuration, and we now can set and say I want to configure that source to go to that destination, and we update the destination, and that will now update the pumping station with the information from the subcatchment. So we're just going to quickly come do this for all of the other 6 pumping stations we've got. It shouldn't take too long. Update. That's the third one. So thank you for being patient and waiting for me to do this. That's the 5th one, and we'll just add in the last one in a minute. That's it. So that's now done, and if we come back into, we can actually see that it's already populated. So what it's done here is it's defined in the subcatchment. I'm just going to refresh this one again. So you can see it's already starting to calculate everything. So what we've done is, this is the data we've just taken in. So this is the input name, this is the flow data which is coming from the subcatchment 009A. So this is effectively the flow data, and we've got all the relevant rainfall. You can see the spikes, and we've got a queue out as well, and we can see from up here very quickly that there is limited, there's been very little action in this particular subcatchment, and this is a purely made up subcatchment, so it's no real relevance. But this would normally be looking at the available capacity that we have within that wet well. So that covers this particular video. So what we've done is we've added pumping stations, we have then created the associated nodes automatically, and then we have allocated each subcatchment into the pumping station, and those pumping stations are now calculating and doing their thing. So thank you very much indeed for listening, and I hope to speak to you in another video.